So, when having conversations about visioning, which is the conversation that we're having today, it's important to look at the deep practice. I'm not talking about visioning 101. I'm not talking about visualizing what you would want to come to fruition. I'm not talking about writing intentions down or setting goals and praying them up. I'm talking about doing a fearless inventory of our intentions, our unconscious intentions, and our alignments, our unintentional alignments. I believe that we all, through positive intention, set visions for ourselves. And sometimes those visions come up short because we do not understand or recognize the principles in action behind them. We do not understand and recognize the depths of our own being and that which may be speaking louder than the words we may be sharing. So take a deep breath with me as we dive into this. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying." Who you are speaks so loudly, I can't hear what you're saying. Do you think it's possible that sometimes what we may mean for good may have some unconscious intentions or unintentional alignments behind it? That what we think we may be offering out there, acting upon, saying, doing, may actually not be contributing to the world in which we want to live, to the visions that we want to create, or to a world that works for all. Have you ever felt that with someone else? Have you ever felt that you witnessed or received an action, a gesture, a choice that someone else made, and you've wondered if what you're seeing is what you're getting? You've wondered if there's actually something behind it, or you've really kind of wanted to lean in and say, do you really know what you mean when you say that or when you do that? Do you really know how that comes off when you show up like that? You know, on the surface, you're showing up, and I think you're thinking that it's looking like this, but what I'm seeing is your unhealed stuff. Or what I am seeing is your selfish nature, or what I am seeing is your closed-mindedness. I have a grandmother that is in her freedom form, and she loved me very, very much. There's no doubt in that. And I share this story as part of a teaching story, not about, you know, guilt or disliking or anything like this. I share it so that we can all look at our own stuff. So I thank her for giving us that gift. She was a strong Catholic woman. And when I got into Unity, and when we would have conversations about other practices, she would get very, very upset. And she was not necessarily kind with her words and how she showed up. So her love got mangled in her doctrine. Her love got shifted and changed by her hardcore beliefs. And what I know to be true is that her positive intentions got subverted by her unintentional alignments, by her unconscious intentions. So that love, that love of a grandmother, that desire to love your grandchild, got mangled in the idea that the love she had for my soul and the saving of my soul was more important, was something greater to be served than the actual love demonstrated and experienced between us. So instead of experiencing love sometimes, it was the experience of judgment, criticism, anger, resentment, when truly the intention was love. The intention was to make sure that my soul was saved for humanity, you know, that my soul was saved for eternity, that my soul was saved and safe. Unconscious intentions and unintentional alignments. On January 6th, 2021, we saw a raid on the United States Capitol. Some of that experience had to do with unconscious intentions and unintentional alignments. Can we breathe into that? I think the effects that we saw, the activity that we saw on that day, was not the intention of everyone that showed up there. There were a lot of individuals who showed up there with a very different intention. And there were some individuals that showed up there with a intention that was so strong for one thing, or a fear of one thing happening, that the actions seemed to justify the means. But spiritual principle tells us that you cannot get to something you really want without going through the consciousness that is aligned with it in order to birth it. You cannot get to something you want without going through the consciousness that is designed to birth it. It will be an illusion. So you cannot have peace without moving through peace to create peace. You cannot have true spiritual power by asserting power and domination rather than moving through spiritual power and expansion in that way to arrive there. That's an illusion. That's building a home on ground that is not stable. So it is part of the spiritual practice for each one of us to look at our alignments, to look at what we're aligning with. Because we've all had the experience within ourselves or within others watching the world or watching someone we love, where we see what's happening and we think, this is not what I was visioning, or this is not what I wanted to create. This is not what I did. I'm not responsible for this. But then when we really look at our stuff later on, when we do the real work, we see, I was aligning with this all the time. So I was saying I wanted a healthy relationship, but I was aligning with a very dysfunctional one. My actions, or if you want to talk about it in numbers, the numbers that I'm putting into the equation are adding up to one thing while I'm saying I want another thing. And that will never work, right? That's not the path, that's not the practice. So it is incumbent upon each one of us to look at why our visions might fall short or why our visions might fail us. How can we become more mindful? How can we learn more about ourselves and step into our divine purpose more powerfully? Become more conscious and become more passionate. Hopefully, the spiritual practice makes us become more conscious and more compassionate. It makes us become more conscious with ourselves. And rather than turning that as a judgment onto anyone else, it should help us have more understanding. It should help us have more compassion for others. It should open our hearts. So let's pause and just dive in to what happens and what we can do instead when we feel like what we're seeing is not what we're getting. When that happens, do you pause and allow yourself to really feel the moment and dive in and ask, what feels off about this? Either with myself or someone else, what feels off? When you know there's a positive intention on the surface, or there's an outer intention, but there's a silent one underneath the showcased one. You hear me? There's a silent one that is underlying the showcased one for ourselves, for others, for our community, for our world. There is a beautiful beloved that I have the gift of interacting with and conversing with, a part of our spiritual community, a person in our spiritual community. And they were sharing, we were talking about birthdays, and they were sharing some loving things they were doing for family members around birthdays. And when this person was sharing, they said, you know, I do this every year for my sister, my sibling. I do this for her every year, and I send it off. And what I also do is I send a text to all of my siblings. They have a larger sibling group. I send a text to my siblings when it's her birthday, and I send it partially to celebrate her and also to remind my brothers and my other sisters that it's her birthday. So to make sure that they say something. Can you feel the beauty of that right there? So helping others celebrate this person. And we had a little conversation about it, and I was talking about how beautiful that was, because her intention was to show her care, right? Her intention is for someone on their birthday to feel loved. Beautiful, right? To feel cared for, and to show that she cares for them. But there is an expanded intention there, a deeper, broader intention. And that is for them to feel loved by everyone that loves them. That's for them to feel remembered by everyone who cares. And this person was demonstrating generosity, embodying generosity and embodying love. It's so caring and giving of you, I said. You know, so you're serving your whole family, not just the birthday girl. And you're giving her more than just you in and of yourself could give, because you're being selfless in that way. And the result is that the person being celebrated is seen, they're loved. And even if it's behind the scenes and no one even knows you did it, you co-created something. You took something that could have been limited to just you and just your good, and you spread it, you expanded it, you multiplied it. You lifted it into a higher intention, a more conscious intention, and you aligned with your true goal. You aligned with your true vision, which was for someone to feel loved. Now, what's the contrast of that? What could happen instead? You could not do that, which many of us, you know, don't do that, but you could not, and you could know that that person feels sad every year on their birthday because someone who loves them very much does not have a functioning brain that works for calendars, and they forget every year, they forget. And the person's heart just has a little bit of heaviness every year because that person just forgets. And so you could see that that happens and just think, well, that has nothing to do with me. I remembered. Good for me. I'm not that person that's on the naughty list. I'm not that person that's on the forgot you list. You could also feel resentment. You could feel resentment inside, thinking, this person is a valuable and loved member of our family, and everyone should remember them on their own. I should not need to remind you. I should not need to say anything. I'm not your mother. You deal with your own stuff. What else could happen instead? You could have the opportunity to share with someone. You could be on the phone with someone that loves that person, or in the same room with them, and you could say, I'm getting ready to send off my birthday text, my birthday card, my birthday greeting, whatever it is. And I am going to give this gift of love to the one that I care about. But unconsciously, what could happen is, I'm going to be the one that does it. I'm the one that's special. They're not going to remember. I am the special one that remembers. And one might even kind of hide or contain that they're doing, even not let something out that naturally would have come out as part of a conversation, like, oh yeah, it's this person's birthday today. Oh yeah, la, 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 la. You might actually find yourself holding that back. Can you feel me here? Holding that back and not mentioning it, with a little voice inside saying, shh. Unconscious intentions and unintentional alignments. One creation is about you, and the other is about them. One is more self-serving, and the other one is about service. Now, this is subtle, and we all have to take this example and go into our own lives and do an inventory of our own minds. Because you may be saying, I would never do that. I would never, be with one person and hide like that when I could expand it and be more giving and be more inclusive. I would never exclude. But we are all human, and no doubt this pattern, this framework that limits visions, that brings us to a place where who we're being sometimes speaks more loudly. It is within all of us. It's whether or not we have the insight and a quiet enough mind to see where we operate according to limited consciousness, and to see where our intentions can be aligned with expansion, where we can expand how we show up. Sometimes we have an unintentional intention or a need to be special, to be seen, to be acknowledged, to get the credit. When our higher intentions are about love, they're about compassion, they're about being exclusive, they're about expanding, they're about serving. If you think about a great leader is often experiencing others taking credit. That's the sign of a good leader. So you may have an idea, you may have a vision, you may have taken an action, you may have said something, you may have said it for 5 years, for 10 years, for 15 years. Anyone in your job experience this? Where you've shared something, you've said something, but all of a sudden, someone else gets the idea and they talk about it like it's the first time it's been heard. Or they say, hey, let's do that. It may be in your family. It may be that you said a long time ago, hey, let's all do something. And then 20 years later, everyone goes, I have an idea. Why don't we do this? A good leader just puts their energy and their intention and their alignment towards what they want to see grow, without needing the credit, without needing acknowledgement. Just seeing it and going, yes, there it is. I will align with that. I will hop on board with that. I will multiply that. It doesn't matter who it comes from. It doesn't matter when it comes. It doesn't matter where it shows up. We grow what we want to see more of. But we all have within us a spiritual great leader and a little child that is still in the developmental stage of me and mine. That everything should revolve around me, everything is about me, and everything here is to feed or to serve me. So what do we want to be? What is in our field of vision? Do we want to be the one that is remembered for being special? Or do we want to be the one that generated more? More compassion, more love, more joy, more positivity, more God? It's a good question to get clear on, and the answer is not always so simple. Sometimes we align with that which we're not really wanting to demonstrate. We're not really wanting to bring into fruition. So can we align with our expansive intentions for our own lives and for the greater good? I had this experience within my 15 years of ministry. I had this experience because in ministerial school, you're not really trained in HR, yet you are kind of you're the person that needs to have skills in every area, right? So I was hiring someone that was going to do finance and accounting. And I was going through the internet and I was searching questions to ask, right? Questions to ask when you're hiring for accounting. And it were all these questions on how would you do this? How would you do that? And all of these kind of deeper questions, on what someone knows about working in a work environment and all this. And then I found one site, just one site, and it went through some really practical questions. And they were things about P&L reports and things about basic accounting, things like what is on a P&L report? Things that I thought when I first read it, why would you ask that? Someone is interviewing for this job. That's got to be one of the dumbest questions I've ever heard. Like, of course, if someone is applying for the job, right? They have the skill set and they would know the answers to all of these. And so I almost left it out. And then I thought, no, it made a compelling argument to leave it in. And so I got to my interviews, and I think there were three top interviews. And I went through the first two, and the first two met a lot of my vision. The individuals embodied, I'm thinking my HR thing. This is totally anonymous, and I could be making up this story, so I'm not breaking any HR rules. Is anyone scared for me right now? Just cut the live stream if I'm breaking some HR rule, because I'm a minister, not an HR head. But I think as long as I'm making this story up, then it's totally fine. But I went through the interviews, and a few of the people, a couple of the people really aligned with like the vision for the office, the vision for the ministry, the vision of positivity in this, right? All this stuff like, oh yeah. And then I got to the questions about accounting, the questions that I didn't think I even needed to ask. And guess what happened? Stumped. Totally stumped. Or answers that didn't make sense. Answers that clearly communicated that like who you are as far as your background to do this job is speaking much louder than your resume, or much louder than what you say you're capable of. And what I recognized is that some candidates would have to have a lot of coaching and a lot of help and a lot of support, and maybe even need some schooling, because they really weren't fit for this position. And then you get to another one and it's like, why are you asking me these questions? It's this, it's that, it's this, it's that. And it was so good for me as far as a practice to really get in tune with my vision. Is my vision about having these things that I think are nice and fluffy and going to be great work environments, and I think I'm seeing all of these elements that I want? Or is my most expanded vision making sure that the finances are held in rock star hands, that there is no thing that needs to be done or trained or grown in that area in order to operate? Do you see what I'm saying? So I had a vision, and I'm trying to fulfill this vision, But I was not aligned at all in the beginning with what would have demonstrated that true vision. So I would have arrived at a result where I had a couple of nice things, but not what was essential. Unconscious intentions and unintentional alignments. When we want to demonstrate our vision, it is so critical that we get really, really clear on what is important and what it is about, right? To really be clear on that so that we know what we're looking for and we know what we're aligning with. Otherwise, we get these surprises. Can you feel that surprise in your own life? Like, yes, that's a story about accounting and that's a story about a job, but have you ever felt it in your own life and gone, I ended up with this, either this job or this partner or this life situation, because I was focusing on what I thought I wanted or what I thought was more important, but that was aligning with another vision, or that was not the essential part of the vision. That was not the core. See, sometimes our minds can trick us when it comes to visioning. Anyone that's been involved in trying to be more conscious of your life for a long time has probably gotten pretty hardcore with themselves in their airy-fairy thinking side. The side that goes, I think I want a checklist in life. And I think I just want to check this box and this box and this box and this box and this box. And eventually you just rip up the list and you throw it out and you begin to understand what is truly important. You begin to understand that sometimes the greatest gifts come when they're not on a checklist. That sometimes the check boxes can be left empty and your heart is made full, because you have let the deepest, the more expanded intention override all of the small needs that may be attached to unhealed aspects of the self, that may be attached to unconscious desires to be needed or acknowledged or special. Little subtle things within that make us exclude or prevent things from happening because we don't even know. We don't even know why we're doing something. When we begin to learn ourselves, when we begin to really dig deep and dive down in there, we can uncover things that make the way straight, the crooked path straight. So let's look at some tools that will help us align with our highest visions, because we will never align with our highest visions when our unconscious and our unintentional or intentional alignments with the greater good are off, or with what is for our highest best. So if we are going for ulterior motives, if we are passive aggressive, if we're not doing our healing work, whatever it is, we won't align with the truth of our being, our highest intention. Even that accounting example, it doesn't matter if you get the job, it'll end up being a nightmare if it wasn't the highest and best for all. So if you want that job for you, but you know you're not qualified, don't go for it. Or go for it and share all the ways you're not qualified and see if they can align with that, right? But it will never benefit you if it is not benefiting the greater good. We will find ourselves being mangled and tangled in something that we just wake up and we go, how did I end up here? So, mindfulness tools, mindfulness keys for our intentions and our alignments, asking ourselves when we do something, and we have to listen, we have to become so quiet, because when we're doing this deep work, I really think that it whispers to us, especially when we don't know where it is. You know what I'm saying? When we don't know what our stuff is. So we have to get so quiet to hear the whisper that goes, slow down before you write your name on that. Slow down before you hang up the phone. Slow down. So we can ask ourselves, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? When I take this action, when I offer this communication, whatever it is, what's in it for me? And what it is what lower needs am I feeding? Not the higher needs. What are the lower needs I may be feeding by this activity or action or creation? Do I have a need to feel special? Do I have a need to be wanted, a need to be accepted, appreciated, valued, elevated? What do I get from excluding someone? What do I get from whatever this activity is, whatever this vision is? Am I attending to my good? And by my, I mean your personal good, your family's good, your whatever group you align with. Am I attending to that good over the one I am intending on serving? Am I focused on my good over the good of that which I am serving? And am I attending to my good, attending to it over the overall good, the collective good, the greater good? Because in principle, there's no such possibility. In principle, people that know principle know that I cannot serve my individual highest good and not be serving the greater good as well. That I cannot serve the greater good and not also be balancing that with the good for my life. It's an illusion that you could serve your own good if it's really your own good, right? It's an illusion that you could serve that and not serve everyone around you. When you are making a choice, and this applies to everything, this applies to your job, this applies to your relationships, this applies to your finance, this applies to everything, this applies to the world. When you serve the greater good, you are serving the holy parts of yourself. When you serve the highest and holiest part of yourself, you are serving God and you are serving the greater good. Period. If you are aligned in that way, not one can be lacking. If you are aligned in that way, you do not need to question your thoughts, your choices. You just trust, right? It can feel like sometimes when you're moving through this process, like, oh, if I make this decision for me, I'm hurting someone else. Not really possible in truth. You may be hurting someone else's injured self, someone else's pain body. But if you are doing what is truly best for you, you are serving the highest good. You are serving the awakening consciousness, the awakened consciousness. You are serving the presence of light, the presence of love, the presence of compassion. The next is to look at, what am I aligning with? What am I aligning with? Am I aligning with true generosity, or am I aligning with, selfish needs? Am I aligning with inclusivity, or am I aligning with exclusivity? Am I aligned with giving, or am I aligned with taking? Am I aligned with serving, or am I aligned with gleaning? And our 3 tools for checking in are to ask, bring awareness, and dedicate ourselves higher. So asking is to ask, who am I serving? Am I serving my ego or my pain body? Or am I serving my source? Am I serving my heart? Am I serving love? The second is to bring awareness. Problems arise when we're unaware that we're choosing. It's not so much even the choice. Like sometimes in the growing path in our spiritual development, we still make choices to be selfish, right? But that's the first step of awakening, is recognizing that there is a choice, recognizing that there is an unconscious intention, and first just looking at it and going, like I like the tip of the pizza, a piece of pizza. I like the tip of the pizza. And I really like looking at a whole pizza pie, like a whole New York pizza pie. And I like being the first one at it so I can look at the whole pie and figure out the slice I want. The people that know me know that, and they let me at the pie. I confess it, I'm aware of it. Maybe someday I'll get over it and move past it, but not today. And I can accept that about myself. Can we look at our stuff? Because really, 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 even our dark stuff, even our bad stuff is not as bad when it comes to the light. And I'm not talking about pizza. It's not as funky when we can communicate it, when we can just show up authentically and say, here it is. Yeah, I do that. Yeah, I did that. Still working on it. I may heal it, I may not. Can we recognize that there is a choice, that we have a choice? Can we recognize when we're self-serving or when we're selfish? Recognize when we're serving others or we're giving without attachment, and have no guilt around it, just have awareness. And the third is this: can we dedicate ourselves to something higher? Can we just be where we are and expand just a little? Just expand to the next stage. Expand it. So if we have a relationship and we know, this relationship is for us. Look, I got love. Be with that. But can we also take the next step of looking at each other and saying, let's dedicate ourselves to something? What is unique about us and our coming together and our relationship that we can dedicate higher, that we can dedicate to the world, so that our love and our relationship isn't just about serving our family or serving those that are like us or serving me. It's about something greater. What would that be for us? Can we talk about that? Can we explore it? So that our jobs, what we do, so that our finances, whatever it is, whatever area you're thinking about today, your healing work, can you expand it one level and dedicate it to a higher purpose? Include more. Expand the vision. Because if our visioning and our visions are just for ourselves, they are limited, because we are not separate sense beings. We feel like it, but we are part of a great whole. We are part of a great all. And we're called to be demonstrating that, even through our individual visions. So go a step beyond. Move from the individual to the greater good, knowing that both will be cared for in the process. Make intentions conscious and alignments intentional. Martin Luther King said, every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. This is where holy visions are formed and demonstrated, by making intentions conscious and alignments intentional. Namaste.